Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member? Upgrade for free or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. Commanders hit a new low. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. Well, the Commanders have been eliminated from the playoffs, but that really was kind of the case a few weeks ago. But mathematically, they're done after one of their worst showings, arguably their worst showing of the season. And I say that for a variety of reasons. Maybe I say a new low because so many things went wrong today. Injuries, but also just really bad play, especially on defense. And just when you think they took a step forward, as Dan Quinn said, they took 3 steps back. And I think it may have even been more than that. But let's start with the injuries first, and we'll get to some more stuff. Starting with Zach Ertz, the fear is, Quinn said, that he has torn his right ACL, and that, of course, would make him done for the season, of course. And then it has to bring his future into doubt for playing next season. And then who knows what that means for Ertz. Been a really, really good tight end in this league. Last week moved into 5th place in the all-time receptions list. And a guy that means a lot to this franchise, and for someone who's only been here for 2 seasons, like you could see it on the players' faces. David Rye, the tight ends coach, just like I walk the locker room, the first thing I see is the red on his face. Looked emotional, right? Because this is a guy that has meant a lot to him. Those two do a lot of work together. And especially, during breaks or during special teams portion of practice, Ertz is always working with David Rye on his footwork, especially. And so just like you can tell why a guy's lasted so long and been productive for so long when you watch him work. And that's what Rye appreciates about him and why I think it hit him so hard. And I think anybody, even like Terry McLaurin said, it took a lot out of, he goes, it hurt anybody, right? It hurt everybody because of what he has meant here. And he's a leader to guys like, who's one of the players talking about, like, he's a leader not just to guys in offense, but to guys at other positions because of the experience and the knowledge that he has. And he became a big time mentor to Jayden Daniels, somebody that those two get along extremely well. It's a guy that Daniels really, really likes and respects. And so, like, when you see that happen, there is a human element to the game. And like, this loss was terrible. There's a lot to get into with it. Well, actually, to be honest, there's a little bit to get into it. I don't know about a lot, because after a while, it becomes a broken record this season in particular. So, but I do want to point out, like, the human element of this game is watching a guy like that get hurt and what it does to those around him, because they know what it means. Like Bobby Wagner went and talked to him in the locker room, in the trainer's room after the game. Didn't really say what he talked about because he just wants to keep that private, which is fine. But like, it's one veteran to another, one future Hall of Famer to possibly another. And so, that's the respect he has. And I talked to tight end John Bates. I'm going to play his clips now because I thought it was pretty good what he had to say and just sums up what others think about him. But here's what Bates said.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. When you see a guy like Zach go down like that, emotionally for you, what's that like?
It really just, like, to be honest, hurts my heart. Like, when you see a great one like him, an all-time great like him, just be the pro that he is and do everything that he does to have the success that he has. Like, he does everything the right way and the way, like, things should be done. And so, hurts your heart for him.
Did you have a chance to talk to him after?
Briefly, just checking over him and letting him know that he's loved and that everything's going to be okay, and lots of prayers for him.
You've only spent only, I guess, 2 parts of 2 seasons. What did you learn? What have you learned from him? What does he mean and has he meant to this place?
Just a pro's pro. Like, just the way that he, like, handles his business. Like, he does the right things for his body. He treats his body the right way with his nutrition. Like, he's going out there and just doing the extra stuff, like his routine. I could go on and on about, like, what, like, mentorship I've been able to get from him and just, like, the impact that he's made on me. And so
also Jayden, to see him go out again, like, you know, how hard has it been for the offense just to get any sort of rhythm this season because of all these ins and outs?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's something that we've had to deal with this year. And, you know, it's tough when you got a guy that's practicing all week and then gets hurt, and then you got, you know, a guy that we obviously believe in coming in, but, you know, doesn't get those reps. And so, while we know that he can do it, also, you know, is a downside to the situation. But I still believe in our group, and, you know, obviously it was kind of a roller coaster game for us, but we have 4 division games left and go out throwing punches.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Commanders fans, your fandom just got an upgrade. Introducing the AAA Commanders MVP membership, where real fans get real perks and the same trusted AAA membership benefits. The new AAA Commanders membership provides the chance to win game tickets, access to VIP events and experiences, 15% off at the Commanders online pro shop, while providing peace of mind for Commanders fans on the road. Already a AAA member? Don't sit on the sideline. Upgrade your membership or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. But with Ertz now done, that opens up the door for, as everybody wants to see, these other young tight ends. What can they do? And I've told you all along, like with guys like Ben Sinnott, he has played. He has, and you can earn more time. Like you have to earn more opportunities in this league. If you want to have certain standards and uphold those, you need players to then earn what they get. And yes, sometimes coaches can be reliant or become dependent on veterans, but with Ertz, he's been productive for them and a good safety net for them. The issue they've had in offense has not been Ertz, it's been they don't have anything around him. So when others get hurt at receiver, then you notice what Ertz can't do anymore. But when the others are there, you still see that he can help them, and that's why he stays in the field. And it's also the respect they have for him. But he also does a lot of things right, as you know, as Bates said, he's a pro's pro, does everything right. So, but this is now a chance for Sinnott. It's also Colson Yankoff. Like he's the guy that's been a little bit more active in the pass game than Sinnott has been lately. Well, actually, both about the same. But point is, I think they both have an opportunity now to get to show more of what they can do. And let's see, you know, if they can, what kind, not so much can, you know, the future for them here, but like what role in the future for them here. I think we'll clearly find that out, but it was a tough one for sure. And he's like, Ertz is a guy that I really respect. I enjoyed watching him just because of how he approaches the game, just a true pro. And though, you know, it's always nice to cover guys like that. And like I said, it's the human element of this game that is that for sure. And it's funny because like one time I remember really when it stung, when I really saw that, I mean, you always see it, right? But I remember one time in particular was when Niles Paul got hurt. If you remember that way back when, gets hurt in the preseason game, he worked his whole offseason to become a starter. He was going to have that. That was his job. And I remember Darrell Young saying like he was crying on the field because seeing him, knowing what Paul had put into that offseason, knowing what the opportunity that awaited him, and then seeing what happened, it really jars them because, you know, again, it's a human element. Meanwhile, Jayden Daniels, Dan Quinn said that he could have gone back into the game. He, as you know, he hurt I can't even say that. I don't know if he hurt it again, re-aggravated, certainly did something to it enough that where he did something enough to where on the interception gets shoved to the ground, left elbow goes down. He had been cleared for contact. Everything was okay. This was not just a one-person decision to bring him back. It was Quinn, Peters, Josh Harris, medical staff, Jayden Daniels, his representatives. And so like this was a group decision to bring him back. And there's, you know, seemed to be all in accord. But regardless, it bothered him enough that he had to come out of the game. Like after the interception, he laid on the ground for a minute, gets up, runs off the field, was clearly upset, frustrated, and he sat on the bench for a little bit where they're all looking at him. They took off the protective padding. Then they went in the medical tent, and then Quinn said, that's it. And that was a smart decision just because, like, as Quinn said, they had nothing going on. This was not a game you wanted to put him back into. The question now is, what happens next? Do they put him back in? I even asked Quinn after the game, do you want to see him again? And he said, and what he said is it's still an important developmental time for him. So if he's healthy, and I know people are gonna say, well, was he healthy if he re-aggravated or whatever it did. That's a fair question. I think that's something that will be asked as well. So, or needs to be addressed as well, because if it re-aggravated enough to have that happen, and I also think, as someone else said, had they been 9-3, he'd have gone back in the game. So, just keep that in mind. I don't know. I don't think there's anything severe. They never ruled him out of the games, so that is telling. Usually in situations like that, guy gets hurt, then you might be questionable to return. Eventually they rule him out. They never ruled him out today. So that is something, I guess, that's positive. I guess, yippee. But that is a good sign for him, though, I will say, because if he had been ruled out, then it would have been like, okay, now what's wrong? Now we just wait and see. I don't know what's going to happen there. I do think at some point it becomes fair to say, hey, listen, it's a third game in a row that he's had to leave early for whatever reason, 2 with injuries. This time maybe it was coach's decision, but it's a coach's decision because of what happened to his elbow again. So, that's something that you have to look at and you have to consider. Is it worthwhile to keep putting him back out there? And I mean, I've talked to many people who all say, yes, put him out there. And I told you too, I believe it's important for his development, but I do think there's a point where it's like, if it's just not there, as someone else said, like last year was a dream season, it's been a nightmare. Let's see what next year holds. And there's people close to him who say, like, he's got to prove that he's durable. That's something going forward that Daniels has to prove. He has to prove he can be durable in this league because they need him to be. And, so, we'll see what happens there. But like I said, it was not a decision made lightly to bring him back. And I don't think it would be one made lightly to have him back whenever that is, whether it's New York, Dallas, or Philly, or not at all. So that will be a group decision, but didn't seem like they were leaning that way after the game, but we'll know more on Monday for sure. So we'll see about that. Hail Nation, take your fandom up a notch. Check out the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll get all the reliable AAA benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance, plus exciting Hail Nation extras like opportunities to win game tickets, attend exclusive events, and 15% off the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? No problem. You can upgrade for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join today and become a true Commanders MVP and Hail Nation member. So let's get on to some other stuff, because what this game revealed too is that they have deeper problems. And this is, I'm a proponent of them finishing strong. Now, finishing strong doesn't necessarily mean winning every game, but it means looking a hell of a lot better than they did today. And that's because if they finish like this, they had 2 weeks where they looked much better, competitive, lost in overtime, could have won either game for sure. Looked like they might win both games and then didn't, but at least they were competitive and like, hey, they're right there. Well, this is a team that had lost 6 out of 7, had a struggling quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and their defense is outstanding. Like, they have one side of the ball that's outstanding, but the offense had been terrible. And yet this team couldn't beat them. That's why I call this a new low. It wasn't just the injuries. It was the combination of everything. It was a combination, seeing Daniels go down again, Ertz with the ACL. But just from a football standpoint, this was brutal. And this is something that, like, this, if they had lost, even if you lose this game 20-17, it's like, okay, and Daniels looks good. The offense looks good. Just faced a better defense. And the defense we know has its struggles already. So if you lose there, it's like, okay, you get it. But you can't finish like this, because it just opens up. It takes you down a path that I don't think this franchise wants to go down, which is then what becomes, does this coaching staff go into next season on a major hot seat because of how you finish? How do the players perceive what's going on here? They bought into Quinn's messaging. They still have bought into that. Even on my 5 thoughts, I talked about this last week, that how much they're still bought into it. And how their practices, you can't tell that they were 3-9 versus 9-3 the year before, whatever, or very good the year before, right? Because of how they are. So how long does that last if you continue to get blown out? And if you continue to have games like this, does that last? If not, it lingers into the offseason. Questions will always be there. And then it goes into next season as well. It's not as simple as, oh, hey, you get the 5th pick. There you go. You're ready to roll. It's not like that, because if you finish like that, and again, I have 5 thoughts. I said this talking to one player. I was like, hey, if you start 0-3, there's going to be a lot of jobs on the line, and they know it. And so it just is not a healthy situation. So, again, I think an ideal thing is you win one or two of these games, if possible, but you look competitive in these games. You need to be competitive because again, it just opens up like it opens up a bunch of problems that one player drafted fifth is not going to solve. And it's not just, I know you get higher picks in each round. It ain't enough, folks. There are going to be so many more questions about, from the getting the players to the coaching the players to the players themselves that is just different. So that's one of the things, and I don't want to overreact to this, but this was bad. And this was really bad. And like I said, Dan Quinn said 1 step forward last week against Denver, 3 steps back today. So that's definitely a big concern. And I think with going back to Daniels, one of the reasons that they still would like to see him is just to get him in a better spot and to get him the more reps and et cetera, et cetera. But you also want to see what can this offense do. You want to evaluate some of these guys on offense together with their quarterback. But man, if you keep having to leave, then it just gets harder. And do you sit him out another week and then bring him back for the final 3? I don't know. And I think it's just there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked. But again, after the game, Quinn certainly made it seem like they would like to see him again, for sure. And football, as he said, there's no risk-free game with this. And McLaurin has said, guys know there's injuries almost 100% guaranteed if you play this game a while, but you don't want to see this many injuries in one season, and for sure. So see what's there. Let's go into the game just a little bit. It was Washington's first drive and Minnesota's second drive that determined this game. Now, the Vikings' first drive, I thought it was interesting because Kevin O'Connell, they won the toss and they elected to take the ball. That is not always what happens. As you know, anymore, it's always defer, so you can get the end of the first half, first kickoff of the second half. They chose to take it and they marched it right down and they scored. And then Washington marches right down a good drive of their own. They get on 4th down and 1. Debo can't hang on to the ball in the back of the end zone. Looked like he stumbled there for a minute and then just tried to get back up, lost his footing. But the ball was there. It was a good throw by Daniels. He had a couple good throws on that drive. He did all right early on for a guy who had missed that time. I just think the more he played, you could start to see some of the rust. And you could, the hard part is I want to go back and watch the all-22 to see what was going on in the secondary and were they taking things away. They're getting obviously very good pressure. The blitzes were really kind of getting to him for sure, and then chasing him out of the pocket. One thing that happens a lot with him is he runs to the right. Teams are now ready for him when he runs to the right. They chase him. They basically push him out that way, and they are ready to play him that way, which is why he doesn't always get huge yards when going that way. But teams know that, and he knows that. Other teams know it too. But so that sequence, but then it was the 98-yard drive that the Vikings had, 12-minute drive, converted 5 third downs, a 3rd and 6, a 3rd and 9, a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 12. Folks, that was embarrassing. And it was bad football. And I think that's one of the things that, again, that you have to look at. And I think the defense now they're just undermanned. And one of the issues when you lose Amos and Lattimore is you lose the ability to really kind of they can mix up their zone coverages, but they're not mixing up man or zone. They're always going to be playing some type of zone coverage. And you had a quarterback today, McCarthy, who doesn't do as well facing man coverage. But these guys didn't want to play that and blitz more because of the talent they have at receiver with Jefferson and Addison. And that was one of the reasons, and among others, and that was one of the reasons they didn't blitz more. And I asked Quinn about that, because he talked about he felt like they weren't aggressive enough defensively, not so much from a play calling, but just from a play style with the players in the field, sometimes too much cushion. And you saw that, my goodness, they let McCarthy get into a really good rhythm. I credit Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, of course, former Redskin OC, but I credit them for a good game plan to get the ball out of his hands fast. And then when you're getting zoned, you're putting in a bunch of zone beaters, and you saw that today. These guys there weren't a lot of contested catches. There just weren't. And that's part of the problem. That zone was they picked it apart. And when you can't switch back and forth a little bit more, it just makes it easier to diagnose. Even if you're trying to change things in the back, which they did last week against Denver, did it against Miami, but it wasn't working today. And part of it is they just can't put enough pressure with their front four. And when McCarthy would break out, like they really couldn't do much with him. And so I think it just made it difficult. They did blitz one time. They Quan Martin on a safety blitz, but it was a 4-man pressure. So it's more, because I think one of the linemen dropped on the play. But they did do it. And as Quinn said, like that was the danger. Like you could blitz more, but you got to deal with what they might do in the back end. But I will say, like at some point, you've got to make it tougher on the quarterback, and they never did. Like JJ McCarthy is somebody he can get very erratic, very wild. His eyes and his feet do not match up a lot. So you give him a muddy pocket and you could really affect him that way. And they weren't able to do that at all today. And then the other one is on that offensive series. I wanted to go back to this because they had first and goal at the 4. They threw 3 passes, ran once. And the last 3, the last 3 plays, all passes. The one they tried a trick play to Coleman wasn't there, and 2 more passes. Chris Rodriguez running the ball well. Would have liked to have seen another chance for him to get the ball in that situation, just to see what he could do. Can he finish off that drive? Because he was really running well. And the run game right now is the strength of that offense. Though when you lose 31, when you put up a goose egg, there's no such thing as a strength of the offense. And it's unfortunate what happened there. That's the first time, by the way, that they've been shut out since 2019 when the Niners beat them 9-0. I think it was like the worst shutout since like 2005 when the Giants beat them. I think it was 36-0. So anyway, not a whole lot more to say from Minneapolis, folks. Getting to be broken record time. I thought after last week, and as Quinn said, told the guys afterwards last week, hey, you were lost. We lost, but we're not lost. That's what he told them. Well, today they're out in the wilderness again because you've got to finish differently. And like this was a very dispirited group coming off the field. You didn't hear, there was guys walking the locker room. You didn't hear a sound. It was very, very quiet in the locker room, just a quiet locker room again, outside of guys being interviewed. There was some emotion because of Ertz. There's resignation because of what's going on. To be honest, I think they were stunned by what happened today because I think they clearly felt like they could play with Minnesota. Every reason you would think, I thought they could play with Minnesota, and even Quinn said like that sequence after that, when they got that second touchdown, it's like that was the game changer because once you get down by 2 scores against a defense that can apply that kind of pressure, it's very, very difficult. And then it was also a 12-minute drive. So just, I guess the other thing is it shows you it wasn't just about the play call on that deal. Like they just don't have a lot of talent there. And yes, we can look at calls and you can do this, but they just don't have playmakers and they need some guys up front who can get home and then, or guys in the back that can protect enough so you can do some different things up front and they just don't have it. So, all right, folks, I'm going to ramble and I'm going to stop here because I'm going to knock on there. Hello, anybody still out there? Because I know how hard this is. And after that game like that, who the hell wants to relive it? But that's it. That's all I got. I'll be doing a Second Thoughts podcast to come out Tuesday morning, and Bram and I will be doing the live stream Tuesday night. Join us there. Maybe we can talk about something else other than this. I don't know. We'll find something else. Maybe it's a little bit more interesting or fun to talk about. Maybe some guys to watch in the college football. Who knows? But that's it for me. That's it from Minnesota. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.